Okay. So hi everybody, my name is Justin Thalen. I'm going to be doing my demonstration speech today on building an outdoor chalkboard. So how many people have children? A couple people in the crowd. If you don't have children, maybe you'll have children someday, so that'd be a good idea too. So are you concerned that your kids aren't getting outdoors enough? Seems to be a concern of a lot of people nowadays. The US News posted an article in 2009 that suggested that adults and children alike should get at least 15 to 20 minutes of sunshine per day just for the vitamin D aspect. So there's a lot of other reasons why we should spend time outside, but let's ignore the fact that the air in the valley is horrible. So the three main points that I'm going to go over today are the materials and supplies you'll need to make a chalkboard, how to actually put it together, and then some of the reasons why it's a good idea to have some outdoor activities. So first of all, you're going to want to pick up some sort of substrate to make the chalkboard. Right, so this piece right here is called hardy board. This is actually a construction material used behind like tiles in a bathroom. That's what it's actually for. It's actually a concrete board with a fibrous inlay that keeps it from being more rigid. So I recommend this just because it's a little bit more rigid. It makes a better surface to put chalk on top of later. So you're going to want that. You're going to want to select some trim pieces. Whatever you want to do for trim, you can be kind of creative and let your creative mind flow because there's lots of different trim. I just went with a basic kind of piece of trim here, but you're going to need a saw, a drill, some screws to put it together. You're going to want some adhesive for later, a caulking gun for the adhesive. I recommend construction adhesive, but any type of wood glue will actually work. Caulking also to seal it up. Sorry, there's a lot of things on here. Sanding paper or sanding discs for finishing it off. Obviously a tape measure. Some clamps are always handy to have. You're going to want paint and primer. And then obviously some painting materials as well. I also have a level and a straight edge here. If you're really good at eye leveling things, you don't need a level since it's just an outdoor chalkboard. But if you want to use an eye level, that's a good idea. A couple of optional things you could use is instead of this is a power saw, obviously, you could use a regular handsaw. That would work if you don't have a power saw. And you could use like a regular Elmer's glue as opposed to like a caulking gun glue. So that brings me to my second point of how to actually put this thing together. Obviously, the first thing you want to decide is where to put it. So here, bring up these pictures here. So I decided that I was going to put my chalkboard here on this piece of fence. So I measured it out. You want to make sure you measure the size you need. Hardy backer board, according to Lowe's, can be custom ordered in different sizes, but its standard size is 3 foot by 5 foot. So if you want a chalkboard that's bigger than 3 by 5, you're going to have to do 2 sheets, which is what I ended up having to do here. That's why you see a piece is cut. So once you figure out where you want to do it and how big it's going to be, you're going to want to cut it. With hardy backer board being made of concrete, it will actually spit up quite a bit of dust if you cut it with a saw. So it's not really recommended. But a good way to cut it is if you take a utility knife and you measure out your piece and mark it with a pencil. Then you could take your utility knife. And what you're going to do is you're actually just going to score along the surface with the utility knife. You want to get kind of deep down in there to get the cut about at least halfway through. And then what you can do is take your piece of wood, lay it underneath the long half of it, and just push down. And you'll see it kind of folded there. You can also see in that picture up there how it kind of folds. And then you can actually just bend it all the way over. So then you can cut it with relatively, I mean there's a sticker on the back, but with relatively little dust, and you don't actually have to have a big fancy saw to cut it. So, and there you go, you got 2 pieces. You don't have to worry too much about the edges because you're going to want to sand them later anyways. So once you've got it cut and you've got to figure out how big you want to do it, the way I recommend it if it's going to be kind of long is you grab a trim piece like this and you lay it underneath, and you're going to want to set your 2 pieces kind of butt to butt on there. And while you're sitting like this, it's a good idea just to stick 1 or 2 screws in here. It's a good idea also to pre-drill this because if you put screws straight through this hardy board, actually I could probably demonstrate that, it'll probably crack on you, but we can try it. Okay, so that one didn't crack, but that's good. But you basically just stick your screws in there to kind of hold it in place. You're going to take them out later because you're going to want to glue the back. But once you get all your screws in place, you're going to figure out the size you're going to want it. Then obviously the next step is to prime. So I recommend Zinsser bin primer. This is an interior-exterior primer. And the reason why I recommend this is just because it is interior exterior, and it's a sealer primer. So it's going to seal the porous surface of your hardy board. Even though this is a concrete board and they use it in bathrooms, it does actually absorb water. So to prevent it from getting rotten later, we want to make sure we seal it up. So you put your primer on it. Next, you're going to want to, once that dries front and back, put chalkboard paint. You can use regular chalkboard paint, but they only sell this in an interior only product. It's not designed to be outside. So if your chalkboard's going to sit in a place that gets a lot of sun, oddly enough, that piece of my fence doesn't see a lot of sun, so that piece doesn't have to be, really an outdoor paint. But exterior flat latex paint will also work, and that will be more resistant to UV rays. So that's another option. Once you've primed and painted this and it's dry, the next thing to do is put your trim on. So I kind of have this little board here half assembled, you can see. So we've got our plain board here. Obviously this is primed. This piece here is actually painted with exterior flat. I did that just to kind of demonstrate that it will work. So we're going to screw our trim on. Once you get your screw trimmed on, or your trim screwed on, then you're ready to kind of mount it in place. So you can see I mounted my board on the fence high enough where it's off the ground, but low enough where my little girl can still ride on it. She's only 18 months, so she can't stand very tall. I use the level there to mount it. So you can just put your level on top, make sure it sits nice and level, and then zip it into the fence. Once it's secure on the fence, you're ready to finish the top of it. I did mine a little bit backwards because I was in a rush. It was starting to rain. So I put the board on, and then I primed and painted the face of it. So you'll see that in the next slide. And that's basically how you put it together. So I'll show you what it looks like. There's some pictures of the finished product. All of these are just Google steals, I have to be honest. This is actually my chalkboard, and that's my little girl drawing on it. I was doing some homework above her head, as you can see. So these are my last pointer, what some good ideas, or why it's a good idea to have an outdoor chalkboard. A website called Child Mind Institute recently did a study on children today, and they found that the average child only spends 4 to 7 minutes outside, and they, in contrast, spend about 7 hours a day in front of a screen. So I think that's a little bit ridiculous. I think that we should have a lot more outdoor time. So the idea of having a chalkboard obviously allows kids to be a little bit more creative, spend some time outside, and kind of develop those outdoor skills. So in closing, I hope that I inspired you guys to spend a little more time outside and come up with some creative ideas. So I went over the tools and materials needed for a chalkboard, how to put it together, and some ideas for how you can use it outside. And that's it. Thank you.